No matter rain, sleet, snow, or sunshine, you can always catch the hottest show on the streets, the best form of Crimson Tide football news, notes, and information right here. That being in my own words, on a Wednesday, a hump day. Yours truly, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Got a jam-packed slate of topics to get to on today. As always, we want you being a part of the conversation as we're coming to you from Tuscaloosa, streaming this to you via YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, go ahead right now and hit that subscribe button. Smash that thing right now. Turn on your notifications so that you can have the updates, news, nerds, alerts, and analysis on your Crimson Tide. But as always, joined here in the studio by my right-hand man, Mr. John Ivory. John, it's Wednesday, man. Let me know how you feeling today.
Man, what's happening? Hey, we got 38 people in the chat already. We lit. If y'all invite someone, we'll have double. So go ahead and share the show. And we're about to have a fire show, man. Light the chat up, too.
Light the chat up, light the call-in up. We want you being a part of the conversation, and you can do this by calling 205-448-1358. That number again, 205-448-1358. And one more time for the little old lady in the back, 205-448-1358, the number to call in to let your voice be heard. We want to hear from you, your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas on Crimson Tide football. Going to be awesome getting a chance to sit down with former Alabama wide receiver Matt Caddell, as we do every single Wednesday. But kind of a small update before we go into our major updates today. After losing one college football SEC pioneer and one Pat Dye, former Auburn head coach, to kidney failure, another pioneer has left us, and that's Johnny Majors, former Tennessee player and head coach. Died today at 85 years old. His wife talked about how he died doing something he loved, he enjoyed, overlooking the Tennessee River. Coach Majors, who was the head coach of the Vols from 1977 to 92, he coached Tennessee to 12 winning seasons in 16 years. A guy that was a three-time SEC champion, won a national championship in 1976 at the University of Pittsburgh, a guy that was the SEC Coach of the Year in 1985, and in 1987 made the College Football Hall of Fame. So our prayers of condolences to the Majors family in the loss of Johnny Majors. But now the huge updates here. Former Alabama wide receiver and the number 12 overall pick in the NFL draft, that being one Henry Ruggs III, to the Las Vegas Raiders. He had a scary situation that happened to him last week, or the earlier part of this week, where he was helping a friend move, and the friend was moving their trailer, and the trailer was on a truck, and of course, the trailer starts to slip, it starts to tip over. Henry Ruggs is trying to keep the trailer from falling, so his body is in between the truck and the trailer, and the heaviest part, the most precious part of that trailer hits Henry Ruggs in the leg or on the leg. It comes just inches from hitting his femoral artery. If it would have hit that, it could have been very fatal for Ruggs, could have bled to death, but thankfully, nothing too serious happened. He sustained a punctured thigh, but he is okay. He is at home. He is resting. He is recovering. So a scary situation for one Henry Ruggs, but he is okay, thankfully. From there, Clemson wide receiver Justin Ross is set to have surgery on his spine, and I remember on Monday's show, you guys, the Alabama football faithful, alerted me of this on the show. So, our prayers do go out to Ross, the young man who, came from Central High School here in Phoenix City, Alabama, but chose to go to the Clemson Tigers, a very talented athlete, had a great freshman year, pretty strong sophomore year, was looking forward to a massive junior year, but that will be put on hold as he will have the surgery on his spine, and hopefully, prayerfully, he gets through the surgery, he gets through it clean, he recovers strong, and he can get back to doing what he loves, which is playing college football. And last but not least, in terms of updates, week 1 of a college football season between Alabama and USC, it is on, according to a report from the Daily Trojan, and also Trojans, Southern California president, Miss Carol Fault. Miss Fault released a statement on yesterday that, USC will have its in-person classes starting on August 17th. They're still taking the precautions. They're still taking the, online precautions, seeing how California is still kind of dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. But right now, the school is on pace to have in-person classes on August 17th. So with that being said, we are more so in the rate of having that first matchup between the Crimson Tide and USC there. So just some updates here around the college football landscape. But we dive into now the first topic of conversation, folks, and it's one that I saw it coming, but it still makes me sort of sad nonetheless, and that is Alabama losing the likes of Terrell Shavers, wide receiver, and Markel Benton at linebacker, both to the NCAA transfer portal. Crimson Tide now having 8 players that have hit the portal since the start of the offseason, the conclusion of the Citrus Bowl. And for quite a few Tide fans out there, the question or the thought is, what's going on? Is this a problem? Should we be worried? Should we be panicking? Is this something new? Is this something different? Why is this happening? And the reason as to why it's going on right now is Alabama is trying to work its way into having an 85-man roster. According to the NCAA, each collegiate program is allowed to have 85 players on the scholarship roster. Now, each university, each program can have walk-ons, but as far as the scholarship guys, you got to have 85. And of course, when this past season concluded and you had the incoming freshmen arrive on campus, the Crimson Tide had about 93 to 94 guys on the roster, so it had to make those cuts where it could, and I'll dive into that more so in just a minute here. But Crimson Tide is just trying to work its way down to having that 85-man roster. But starting this thing off here with Terrell Shavers, this is somebody that it kind of hurts to see him go, because this was the guy that all my money and my poker chips were stacked to be the next big-time breakout receiver for the Crimson Tide. Now, I'm not a gambling person by any means necessary, but my poker chips, my money, my cards were definitely stacked to Terrell Shavers, just seeing how the young man, 6'6", the former 4-star out of Lewisville, Texas, who came in the 2017 class with Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and Henry Ruggs III. You can't coach size. He's got the size. He ran a verified 40 time of 4.38 in the 40-yard dash at one of the high school competitions prior to coming to the University of Alabama. And a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for him, a lot of high expectations for him. Unfortunately, he looks and he sees that there are a lot of dogs on this roster when you discuss John Mechie, when you discuss Slade Bolden, also Xavier Williams as well, and 3 other freshmen that have come into this 2020 class. And, for Shavers, in the back of his mind, I'm pretty sure he's thinking, hey, I may have an opportunity to play. I may have an opportunity to ball out and be that guy that can break out. But when you have so many high-quality players at one position and you have one football, there is going to be somebody that's going to be left with the short end of the stick. And, unfortunately, that guy is, Terrell Shavers. He did earn his degree, so he does have 2 years of eligibility left. I remember he had dropped a tweet on social media going back to Sunday and talking about how, not on Sunday, but on yesterday, and talking about how he loves his brothers, loves his teammates, loves everything that the University of Alabama has provided him with, but he's going to take his final 2 years and go elsewhere. So that would be, Terrell Shavers. When you look at Markel Benton, it's a different situation. Benton, who 6'2", 235 pounds, the 4-star also in the 2017 class, he hailing from Phoenix City, Alabama, and a guy that, people had a lot of high hopes for. He started in the dime package this past year, but after the season ended, I remember Coach Saban talking about how Benton was suspended, from the team. So with him being suspended and then not having spring practice, all of this uncertainty going on with him has pushed him to go to the portal as well. Benton, 33 career tackles in 23 games. And Alabama already having just a plethora of depth at the inside linebacker position. When you talk Dylan Moses, Joshua McMillan, Christian Harris, Shane Lee, Jalen Moody, Alakaho, and then the two freshmen, Demoy Kennedy and Jackson Bratton. So once again, as much as it hurts to see, guys like this enter the portal, you can see why it happens just due to Alabama recruits so well, in particular at 4 different positions. If I've said this once, I've said this multiple times, Nick Saban recruits 4 positions better than anybody else in college football, and that's running back, wide receiver, defensive back, and linebacker. Now, he's starting to hit more so on the quarterbacks. He's done really well with offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I do want to give him his credit on that, but the 4 positions that, of course, you, the Alabama faithful out there, people in national media, commentators, they always talk about the 4 positions to where we know Saban is going to hit on a stud, and that's running back, wide receiver, defensive back, and linebacker. So we have a lot of guys at the linebacker position of high quality, a lot of guys at the wide receiver position of high quality. Somebody is going to end up exiting stage left. And going back to the reason why this is all sort of happening is the coronavirus took away spring practice from Alabama football. And spring practice is important for 2 reasons. Reason A, it gives Nick Saban the opportunity to evaluate his coaching staff and evaluate the players. That's why he kind of looks at spring ball as the midterm. It's also important because it gives the players an opportunity to see, where am I? Where do I stand in terms of the roster, the pecking order? Where am I in the viewpoint of the coaches? Do the coaches look at me as a primary starter? Do they look at me as a marquee first man, second man off the bench in the rotation? Or am I somewhere buried so deep within the depth chart that I'm past oblivion? And as the players are trying to figure out where they are in relation to those things, they get the opportunity to see, do I remain at Alabama? Do I stay with the Crimson Tide and stick this thing out? Or do I gather my family members together? Do we have a conversation with Coach Saban and the rest of the staff? And I make my play of, Coach, I love being here. I appreciate you guys and all that you have done for me, but I got to exit stage left and figure out what's right for me. So when you don't have spring ball, not only does Coach Saban not have the chance to evaluate the coaches and the players, but now the players, in a sense of uncertainty, they don't know where they stand in the pecking order, so they take matters into their own hands. That's why we saw the likes of guys like Scott Lashley and Jerome Ford and Talia Tungabaloa, now Tyrell Shavers, Markel Benton, also Giles Amos, Mac Hereford, and even one Scooby Carter. They have all taken matters into their own hands this offseason and putting their names into the transfer portal and going elsewhere because they did not have the opportunity in spring ball to really see, where they were in relation to the roster, in relation to the depth chart, and in relation to that pecking order. So this is what kind of happened. So nothing to really panic about, jump overboard about, or get beside ourselves about. It's, Alabama ended the offseason with 93 to 94 guys on the roster. It had to make some cuts to get down to the 85-man roster that the NCAA, the league is in favor of, or the league has an order. So it made some cuts. It had 8 guys into the portal. Seven of those 8 guys, scholarship guys. So now it's down to about 86 to 85. It's either at the 85 people it needs to be at, or it's possibly at 86 guys to where there's still one more guy that needs to, mosey on over to that portal. But in terms of Terrell Shavers, he's gone, but Welcome to the world for the likes of John Mechie, Slade Bolden, Xavier Williams. Who wanted bad enough, who gonna work for it. We gonna see. In terms of the freshmen, Javon Baker, Thayou Jones-Bell, Trayshawn Holden. Welcome to the world. Young bloods, who's gonna step up and do the thing, as well as the linebackers as well, with Benton in the portal here. But we go to our first break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. Just getting cranked up on a Wednesday, a hump day. Upon our return, we unpack your phone calls, your thoughts, your tweets, your text messages, your questions, your concerns right after this.
Every sports fan deserves the proper representation. Whitwell Sports introduces to you the Title Towel. Wave that Title Towel in the air like you just don't care in support of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Only $9.99 and it lasts a lifetime. Head on over to whitwellsports.com and get your Title Towel today. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Make sure to subscribe before it's too late and get our new freshly printed end of the year magazine issue. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Back in from the break here, folks, on the hottest show in the streets, that being, in my own words, with yours truly, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Got the man John Ivory in the building, and folks, this is your time. 205-448-1358, the number to call in to voice your opinion on Crimson Tide football or whatever else may be on your mind. 205-448-1358, that number one more time. 205-448-1358. Also, you can text with that number, leave a voicemail with that number. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on those notifications so that you can have all your updates on Alabama football. But, John, it seems like we got a couple of voicemails in the queue, some interesting voicemails that we're going to play right now.
Yeah, we got a few voicemails here.
Stephen M. Smith, how are you? This is Stephen J. Gibson from Prattville, Alabama. One question. Who do you think would be the best top pass rusher for our team, the Crimson Tide? Who will be the number one, the best top pass rusher for Alabama? Thank you.
Good first one out the gate here. Top pass rusher for the Crimson Tide, in my opinion. I know, me personally, I like Christian Barmore. I think he will be the top pass rusher, the number one pass rusher. But I look at this Alabama defense as having multiple guys that's going to create pressure from different angles. So while Christian Barmore, to me, is number one, keep your eyes on Will Anderson, the freshman. He'll get work in there. Keep your eyes on a Joshua McMillan, who can get some work in there. Keep your eyes on a Brian Ray that'll get work. Christian Harris that can create, some issues, some situations there. So while Barmore would be my top guy, Alabama's going to have multiple guys to make sure that opposing quarterbacks are uncomfortable. But appreciate that voicemail.
Calling from Macon, Georgia, home of Kareem Coco Jackson. I love the show. Just wanted to call in and say I think this is the year that Najee Harris should have his Derrick Henry 2.0 season. I think if the Tide wants to win that natty, I think they got to ride it on his back. I love Brian Robinson. I love Trey Sanders. I love the rest of those young guys coming up. But I think this year is going to be his year to be the workhorse. Maybe we can use some of those back in some other situations. But I think he needs to get the ball at least 15 to 18, maybe even 20 times a game and ride him. And he's already shown us last year, especially with that South Carolina and that LSU game, that he can.
Oh man, Phillip ran out of time there, but man, Phillip was talking strong there out of Macon, Georgia about one Najee Harris, and I agree. I think Alabama's going to have to increase the workload of Najee. Najee wants his workload increased. That's one of the reasons why Alabama sold him on coming back for his senior year. Could have went pro, could have chosen to enter his name into the 2020 or this past venue of the NFL draft, but chose to come back for his senior year. We saw it happen with him last season. Over 1,200 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, caught 27 passes, including 7 for scores. So we know how dynamic he is. We know how productive he is. So I 100% agree. The toughest part about that, though, is even though we want to see the workload of Najee increase, Trey Sanders is going to want to touch the football. And it's going to be hard to keep that football away from Trey Sanders. Brian Robinson's going to want to touch the football. He's got to get faster, absolutely. But he's going to want to touch the football. Keegan Robinson also, and then your 3 freshmen with Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, and Kyle Edwards. It's one football. Everybody wants to touch it. Najee wants to see his production, his responsibility increase, and I believe it will. But how much, by what percentage will Coach Saban allow that to increase will remain the question. For everybody else out there, can we put an APB out on Waylon? Got to figure out where is Waylon today. Missing my buddy Waylon. Got to have those poems from my man. So if anybody knows where Waylon is, get him to the phone as quickly as you possibly can here. Definitely want to hear from him today. But diving into the first kind of interesting call segment of the day, these wide receivers, folks, are putting in work. The Alabama Crimson Tide receivers, of course, the first day of in-person voluntary workouts begins on January the 8th, that being next week. But these guys are already getting work in. According to a Twitter site there of Roe Simon, there's his name, Roe Simon Jr. So Roe Simon Jr., who is a personal athletic trainer in the Houston, Texas area, works with a lot of guys. He's been training with or practicing with the Alabama receiving corps at the band field here on the campus of the University of Alabama. And as you're watching these videos, he's working with Jalen Waddle, Slade Bolden, Xavier Williams, Devontae Smith, also Javon Baker, the freshman in here now. So these guys are running clean routes, getting open, catching passes. As you're watching also, Bryce Young was involved in one of these clips as he throws a back shoulder pass to Jalen Waddle, which does a ballerina 360 spin move, does the toe tap in the end zone, looking very reminiscent of Antonio Brown, of Santonio Holmes, and all of the receivers in the league that can do that move. Now, me personally, I think Jalen Waddle can beat any of those guys in the foot race, but that's besides the point. Bryce Young starting to, get that chemistry going with these young guys, with these receivers, showing, the fan base, hey, I may be an incoming freshman, but I can work the chemistry out here as well. And this is a good thing. Having Young here, throwing passes to Jalen Waddle, throwing passes to Slade Bolden, throwing passes to John Mechie, throwing passes to Devontae Smith. It's huge for building up his confidence out the gate, but it's also big because he is going to be pushing Mac Jones to get the best out of Mac. Mac Jones can probably go Goku Super Saiyan off Dragon Ball Z this year, just as due to having a Bryce Young push him is going to bring out even more out of Mac Jones. It's going to make Jones be more accurate, be more fiery, be more precise, have more of those opportunities where he's putting the ball in the hands of these playmakers and they're getting up and down the field. So having a big-time talent like a Bryce Young is going to do all the world for a Mac Jones and even sharpening him up more. It's the whole iron sharpen iron kind of ordeal. So excited to see the players back on campus, the players back, getting in action, working routes, using the hands, putting together, combinations. This is just very, very good to see. Working defensive backs. I mean, Marcus Banks and my man Malachi Moore got kind of did in there by a couple of those receivers. Those DBs really, these DBs are really getting worked by these receivers. But it's all in good. It's all in making sure everybody's better on the field. Everybody's good on the field. Everybody's fine-tuned on the field. And it's going back to, a conversation I had at the barbershop over the weekend where, two of the three guys were talking about, Stephen, we want to see all aspects of Alabama excel, from the offense to the defense to the special teams. Nobody is getting the short end of the stick. Everybody's excelling. Everybody's playing well. Everybody's communicating. Everybody's on the up and up. So, the DBs that you saw here in these videos getting burnt like toast, it's training ground. It's training ground. It's the growing pains, but those guys will take those lessons. They will learn from those lessons. And those defensive backs will be better for those lessons in the upcoming season. And definitely, starting off in fall camp. But we take another break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. Just getting the engine revved up here. Upon our return, we sit down with former Alabama wide receiver Matt Caddell to talk Crimson Tide football after this.
If you want delicious home-style cooking, sushi, and hibachi, check out Otoro Hibachi in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. At home and you can't get away from the TV because the Crimson Tide is about to score? Don't worry. Delivery is also available through Waitr and Crimson2go. That's Otoro Hibachi in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And make sure you let them know the good folks at Touchdown Alabama sent you. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month, or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Make sure to subscribe before it's too late and get our new freshly printed end of the year magazine issue. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Rocking and rolling, folks, on a Wednesday hump day on the best form of Crimson Tide football. News, notes, and information you will find anywhere, and that being in my own words with yours truly, your man, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. We hop to that in my own words hotline where we pick up my brother every single Wednesday, Matt Caddell, former Crimson Tide receiver who played from 2003 to 2007. Matt, how you feeling on a Wednesday? Hope you're doing outstanding, brother.
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Let's get the show started.
Well, all right then, Matt. Let's get started then. As we all know, we're seeing a lot of things going on in our world, our society, our state of the country, the U.S. right now, especially with the murders that have happened with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and also Breonna Taylor from racial injustice and police brutality. And we've seen the protesters all across the landscape. The University of Alabama head coach Nick Saban, among others, have made statements. Players have spoken out. Just a lot of raw emotions right now as we're in a very touching, very serious time. So I know I stated my piece on this very subject here, Matt, but coming from you, a former player and somebody that's well versed in, kind of what's going on, what is your thought of the state of our society right now and what needs to happen in terms of finding common ground?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the unfortunate deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, we still have a lot of work to do as a society for equality and justice for all. And that in order for us to get there, we must come together as a people to respect, have empathy for each other, regardless of our differences, and truly love our fellow man, and to have, which I think in return would make us have a better society and future for all in this world.
Absolutely. And Matt, as we got the news on two guys transferring from the University of Alabama, one being Terrell Shavers at wide receiver, who made it known yesterday, and then today the news of Markel Benton, the linebacker, deciding to put his name in the portal, that being 8 guys in the portal since the start of the offseason. What do you think Alabama is potentially losing in both of these guys, Shavers and Benton, if they're losing anything?
Well, right now they just have they're entered the transfer portal, so I don't know if they transfer. I think we're probably lose some experience. I know Benton had some experience. Terrell Shavers had some experience, especially on special teams. I know he had a fumble recover from a punt return last year. Just kind of some leadership, kind of having older guys. But at the same time, it brings in an opportunity for some other guys to step up. You have some freshmen. It opens opportunities from those freshmen to step up. Guys like Javon Baker, John Demichi, make room for those linebackers we have coming in. Drew Saunders, Jackson.
I mean,
Britton.
Saban just recruits studs, man.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it makes room for somebody else to have the opportunity and really make a name for themselves. And I think with the way Coach Saban's recruited, he's recruited high character guys on and off the field that can really step up and have the mentality to really bring that Bama factor to really help the team win and win championships.
Well, folks, if you're just tuning in to the show, we got former Alabama wide receiver Matt Caddell, played from 2003 to 07 on the In My Own Words hotline. And Matt, we jump back into a conversation we originally started comparing Alabama to those Chicago Bulls teams of the 1990s with Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. Are you ready to get back into Bama's Last Dance, Matt?
I am so ready. I'm really excited about this topic.
We get back into Bama's Last Dance. So on this edition right here, we're discussing the teams that were so difficult for the Chicago Bulls to play when you discuss the Detroit Pistons, the New York Knicks, and the Indiana Pacers. So in terms of college football where Alabama is concerned, which team would remind Alabama of the Pistons? Who reminds Bama of the Knicks? And who reminds Alabama of those pesky Pacers? So starting things off here with the bad boys, the Detroit Pistons. Matt, which opponent of Alabama reminds you of the Pistons?
Awesome. Well, my pick, I'm not going to give it just yet, but the Pistons, they were very physical. They hated the Bulls. It was a heated rivalry. No love lost. I don't know if Michael and Isaiah are still friends to this day. But
they still mad. They still mad.
They're still mad. They still don't like each other. From Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars. And I feel like Alabama's version of the Detroit Pistons, my pick, is the Auburn Tigers. Just as far as the heated rivalry, really can't stand each other. Still to this day, Alabama and Auburn fans do not get along. It's a 24/7, 365 rivalry. And so the Auburn Tigers would be my Bad Boys Pistons version for Alabama.
Like the Auburn move there, Matt. For me, I'm going to go Tigers, but the LSU Tigers. And the reason why I'm going LSU, both programs severely hate each other. Of course, Nick Saban used to coach at LSU at one point in time back in the early 2000s. It's hatred in recruiting. It's hatred on the field. It's hatred among the fan bases. It's hatred all the way around. And you look at LSU, they love to not just want to beat Alabama up physically, they like to try to drain Alabama mentally and emotionally. So you got the Auburn Tigers, which is a great pick, but my version of those Detroit Bad Boys for Alabama, I would go with those Bayou Bengals from Louisiana State University. So from there, we dive into those New York Knickerbockers, those pesky New York Knicks. So Matt Caddell, your version of which Alabama opponent would remind you of the New York Knicks?
Well, the New York Knicks for the Chicago Bulls, they will always meet in the division, championship, Eastern Conference Finals, and it was a very physical matchup. Very heated rivalry. Whoever wins goes to the finals, and it was a pure hatred. Both talented teams. You had Hall of Famers on both sides, and for me, my pick for the New York Knicks is the LSU Tigers. I feel like they always meet Alabama in the SEC West, and whoever usually wins that game goes to Atlanta. So the LSU Tigers are my picks for Bama's version of the New York Knicks.
We actually kind of flip-flop here on this one, Matt, because you go LSU for the Knicks. I'm going to go Auburn for the Knicks, and that's because the Knicks like to get under Chicago's skin. They were that proverbial itch that you want to scratch, you couldn't get to it, as Reggie Miller's sister Cheryl greatly depicted in a documentary, and that's what I look at between Alabama and Auburn. Auburn, to Alabama and Alabama fans, Auburn is that proverbial itch down your spine that you want to scratch so darn badly, and you can't reach it, you can't get to it. It's a serious, serious problem. So I would go with, I like your thought of LSU, I really do, but I would go with the Auburn Tigers as Alabama's version of those pesky scratching New York Knicks. So now we transition here, Matt, to those Indiana Pacers, those Pacers who were always adding things, always bringing in guys. I mean, yes, they had Reggie Miller and Mark Jackson and among other players, but they were always sort of adding on new pieces. So who would represent the Pacers in terms of Alabama opponents?
For me, I would say it would be the Georgia Bulldogs, another program that's kind of coming up, just like the Pacers. You know, the Pacers took Chicago to 7 games. I think they were the only team to really take Chicago Bulls to 7 games. As you know, Georgia took the games are usually really close, and they took Alabama to overtime in the championship game. But luckily, we had the 2nd and 26, the Tua making the play to Devontae Smith, and you know, I just think it's one of those games that it's going to be so physical, so close, and my version of the Indiana Pacers are the Georgia Bulldogs.
Folks, if you're just tuning in to the show here, in my own words, I got the man Matt Caddell, former Alabama wide receiver from 2003 to 07 on the hotline right now. He's picked Georgia as his version of the Indiana Pacers here in terms of Alabama opponents. For a while, Matt, I was wrestling with Texas A&M for this spot. I wanted to go Texas A&M because Jimbo Fisher continues to grow. He continues to try to build. Is this the year for Kellen Mond? Hopefully, but we're not sure. I thought about A&M. I really thought about Ole Miss in this spot. I kind of had a thought process for Tennessee, but the more I thought about it, I was like, why not Georgia? So I went with Georgia as well, just due to kind of the same things that you mentioned. Georgia's always adding on pieces, just like Indiana added on pieces. And now Georgia's got the piece of Scott Cochran to where people feel like, okay, this is the move that's going to end Nick Saban. This is the move that's going to topple the Crimson Tide. Kirby Smart has finally did it. He has finally gotten the secret sauce away from Saban, and that being one, Scott Cochran, along with what Kirby has done on the recruiting trail, the last few years. But, you going with Georgia, myself going with Georgia. So this is pretty interesting here as we're breaking down here, Bama's Last Dance. As always, folks, joined here every Wednesday by former Alabama wide receiver Matt Caddell. Matt, we're going to do this again next week. And so next week, we're going to unveil the version of Barry Krause. So get your notes prepared. We're going to dive into that next week, man. You be good.
All right. Thank you. And always roll tide.
Always fun. They're talking Crimson Tide football with the former legend, the great Alabama wide receiver Matt Caddell. But taking another break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. Still talking Bama football like nobody's business. Upon our return, we unpack more of your thoughts, your questions, your phone calls, your tweets, your concerns. Bring them here after this.
T-Town Menswear in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Make sure to subscribe before it's too late and get our new freshly printed end of the year magazine issue. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Wednesday, and we're talking Crimson Tide football on the hottest show on the streets, in my own words, with yours truly, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Appreciate everybody for jumping on to be a part of the conversation, listening to the conversation. And Tide Nation, it's your time once again, 205-448-1358. The number to call in to let your voice be heard, your opinion be made known. 205-448-1358. And one more time, 205-448-1358. You can text with that number, leave a voicemail with that number. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you can have the utmost and alerts, updates, and coverage on Alabama football. But historical black colleges or universities, HBCUs, man. Topic for today: will Alabama schedule at some point in the future an HBCU team to play inside of Bryant-Denny Stadium? Because other schools in the SEC have done this. Of course, Auburn did it in 2016, scheduling Alabama State as an in-state, HBCU to play at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and then it came back in 2018 and scheduled Alabama A&M. According to a tweet or a report from Jaquez Doucette of Channel 9 News in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the Tigers for the future have scheduled Southern University for 2022 and Grambling State University for 2023. Grambling State, interestingly enough, has won 8 SWAC titles since 2000, so a very prominent program. The thought is, when will this happen for Alabama? When will the Crimson Tide schedule an HBCU program? Because to me, this would be very interesting, and it would work well for both sides, right? Because for the Alabama side, I mean, you schedule an HBCU team, first and foremost, those halftime shows are going to be lit. Those halftime shows are going to be crazy, because the one time I remember, John, Alabama players getting crunk on the sideline, it was 2015. Because this was still the teams that had Jonathan Allen, Tim Williams, those guys. It was 2015, and the band, the $1 Million Band, wasn't even on the field playing at this time. Somebody in the booth, in the press area, in the PA booth, I believe it was my man Nigel McWilliams of Selma. Shouts out to my boy Nigel. Nigel was in the PA booth, and I remember he dropped the song by C Murder. And when Nigel dropped that song, people just went crazy. I mean, folks started twerking in the stands. You had, players on the sideline hitting this number right here. Like, they were going wild, man, on the sideline. I mean, they were going wild. Like, I had never witnessed anything like that. Like, the moment the song dropped, they're like, oh, heck yeah. Like, just getting into it. So, if Alabama was to host an HBCU program, the halftime shows, you already know, those are going to be dynamic. But on top of that, this would also expose the Crimson Tide to a much more, a broader audience. You would bring in more fans. You would bring in more appeal. You would bring in a new wave of ticket sales, because people are going to go, well, Alabama playing Bama State? I'm down. I want to see that. Alabama playing Alabama A&M? I'm down. I want to see that. If Steelman, Alabama wanted to play Miles College, hey, let's go check this out. So you would bring in a different wave, a different entity, of fans and of supporters and of people that want to watch. And then for the HBCU side, playing a Crimson Tide, playing a major power like in Alabama, you're going to get paid to, come in to be a part of this event, and the money, the funds would go to helping out your athletic facility, your weight room facility, your infrastructure, and the growth of your program, also enrollment on top of that. And also, a lot of these, programs, they have student athletes that are really good in terms of wanting to go to the NFL draft. They have some really good prospects. So playing against the University of Alabama, where every pro scout will be at these games, the HBCUs, they will have their players full-fledged centered on national TV with scouts in the press box, watching them, documenting them, evaluating them. It becomes a much better chance for those young men to get drafted because they're getting that national exposure inside Bryant-Denny. But, John, do you see this happening? I know I'm talking about this, but in the future, could you see a situation where Alabama would schedule an HBCU, or is it no way?
No. I don't.
Man!
I don't see it. Personally, I don't see it. Maybe things have changed. I mean, things are changing, but I don't see it personally.
So John leaving his 2 cents in. He doesn't see it personally, but I just feel like it would be interesting, right? Because, for Alabama fans, you guys never want to be left out of doing something, right? If Auburn's doing something, then you as Alabama fans will be like, well, if Auburn's doing it and it's something good, we don't want Auburn outdoing us, so we gonna do it, and we gonna do it better, and we gonna do it on the up and up. Well, if LSU is doing something, and it's something interesting, fun, enticing, entertaining, we ain't trying to have LSU outdo us, so we gonna wanna do it, and we're gonna wanna do it bigger, better than what they're doing it. So just an intriguing thought of how with, Jaquez Doucette of the Channel 9 News in Baton Rouge, just saying how the Tigers for the future of 2022 and 2023 scheduling HBCUs. Would Alabama take that route? Would Alabama go in that direction? But just an interesting topic to discuss and dwell on. We take another break here on the show, folks, but still, phone lines open, 205-448-1358. Want to hear from you, 205-448-1358, to let your voice be heard on the show. But upon our return, we will get into one Freddie Roach and why I am excited about him coaching this defensive front and what he can bring to help this defensive front after this.
If you're an avid Alabama Crimson Tide fan and you love to flaunt it, then show your Alabama Crimson Tide support by grabbing the All-Bama sneakers. They feature bold Crimson Tide graphics, so no one will be able to question where your allegiance lies. When you add these sweet sneakers to your Alabama Crimson Tide collection, go to STSfootwear.com and use the code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. That's code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. Go to STSfootwear.com and get your All-Bama sneakers today. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Make sure to subscribe before it's too late and get our new freshly printed end of the year magazine issue. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
All right, Crimson Tide fans, we are back in from the break on the best form of Alabama football news, notes, and information you will find anywhere, in my own words, with yours truly, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so that you can have the best in news, nerds, analysis, and updates on your Crimson Tide. But we get into the big boys on the defensive line, and more importantly, discussing one Freddie Roach, who is the defensive line coach for Alabama football. I'm excited about having Coach Roach in here, and I've mentioned this before. When you have a guy that thoroughly understands what the Bama factor is, born in this state, North Alabama in the Killen area. He played for the university from 2001 to 05 as an inside linebacker, and a very decorative one at that. Roach was a part of his coaching staff twice, 2008 to 2010 on the strength and conditioning staff, part of that 2009 national championship team. Then he came back 2015 and 2016 as the director of player development, part of that 2015 national title squad. So, Roach knows the ropes. He knows what's to be expected from Nick Saban. He knows what's to be expected from the fans. He knows what's to be expected from this program. And when you have a guy that has been ingrained or immersed, as I should say, in the culture, in the pageantry, in the tradition that is Alabama football, you get a guy that you don't have to really say much to. They know pretty much how to and the way to get the job done. But the reason why, I'm excited to have, Coach Freddie Roach in here is on the defensive line, right? He did some great things in Ole Miss the last 3 years, 2017 to 2019. And he did a lot of these things with 2 and 3 star guys. Now, Ole Miss would bring in a 4 and 5 star every blue moon, every now and again, but more so the production was done by 2 and 3 stars. And through that 3-year period, of the 84 sacks the Rebels had, 58 came from the defensive line. That's 69%. Now, I know stats don't mean everything, but they do give a solid barometer of some aspects. So of the 84 sacks that, Ole Miss had in that 3-year period, 58 from the defensive line. That's 69%. And, Roach produced to guys like Marcus Haynes, Breland Speaks, Josiah Coatney, Benito Jones, DeMarcus Gates, Markel Winters, and Samuel Williams, just to name a couple of guys there. When he was at, of course, South Alabama in 2013 and 2014, coaching defensive ends, he produced 65 sacks combined between those 2 seasons. And in Alabama, we're always comparing coaches and players to former coaches and players. I know we don't like comparisons. Every guy is his own guy. Every man is his own individual. Every person has their own destiny or their own goal in mind. But subconsciously, we can't help it. We compare players to players. We compare, coaches to coaches regardless of position. I mean, for example, case in point, the moment that Nick Saban looks at his wife, Miss Terry, and goes, baby, we going to call this a career. We going to hang up the coaching hat, the whistle, and retire. And the moment that happens, which is, I pray it happens far away from now, but the moment that happens, the individual that's going to be hired or tapped or pegged or chosen to replace Coach Saban is going to get a lot of comparisons to him. People are going to be like, well, can he do what Coach Nick did? Can he elevate the program like Saban did? Can he coach like Saban did? Can he get on these guys like Saban did? Can he put guys in the draft like Saban did? Like, that guy is going to be compared to Coach Saban in terms of different players. I mean, to this day, you have folks that are going, well, who's going to be the next Derrick Henry? People look at, Najee Harris. Najee's the next Derrick Henry. Najee's the next Derrick Henry. For every quarterback that comes in here, they're going to be compared to Tua Tagovailoa. Can this guy do what Tua did? Can he throw like Tua? Can he run like Tua? Can he talk like Tua? Can he lead like Tua? Can he guide like Tua? They're going to be compared to Tua. For wide receivers, it depends. If they're the 6'4", 6'5", Megatron-like freak, they're going to be compared to Julio Jones. Can he box out like Julio? Can he catch like Julio? Can he run like Julio? Or if the receiver is of the smaller body that can run routes, probably a 5'10", 5'11", 6'1" type guy that can run routes, they're going to be compared to Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley and Jerry Jeudy. Of course, you guys are getting what I'm saying here. Comparisons happen. So in terms of Freddie Roach right here, Coach Roach is going to get compared to Bo Davis. Bo Davis is the epitome of when people discuss great defensive line coach at Alabama. It's Bo Davis. Now, of course, guys like Chris Rump, guys like Craig Kumagowski, guys like Brian Baker, Carl Dunbar, they did a decent job. They did solid. They weren't scrubs. They weren't slouches. But when you look at who was that guy that put Alabama defensive line coach on the map, people look at, of course, Bo Davis, who was at Alabama from 2007 to 2010, and in his second stint from 2014 to 2015. So in that 6-year period, we're looking at a young man that coached 83 sacks, including 2 guys that had 10-plus sacks, in Wallace Gilberry, who had 10 in 2007, and then Jonathan Allen, who had 12 in 2015. He was the only coach that had those guys to get, or had multiple guys or more than one guy to average, double-digit sacks. Now, of course, you, the fans out there, would say, well, Steven, Bo Davis was able to do this because he had all the marquee guys. He had all the headline talent. He had all the 4 and 5 stars, which is true. He absolutely did. You are absolutely correct in stating that. But at the same time, you can have all the talent in the world and not be able to push it out, and not be able to produce, and not be able to deliver on that talent. You have to have that coach that can push that talent out, that can guide that talent out, that can get the maximum effort out of that talent. And we cannot say that Bo Davis did not get the maximum effort out of those guys, because he absolutely did get the maximum effort out of those guys. So as much as people would like to have Davis back, when I look at Freddie Roach, he's got the opportunity to emulate, or maybe even go above and beyond what Davis did, just due to the players. They vibe with Coach Roach. They understand, where he's coming from. He's a guy that's, like I said, old enough to know the process, the idea, what's to be expected, how to get it done the right way, but he's also young enough to relate to these young athletes. He's also young enough to kind of understand, what these young men, what they go through. And for him to have this success that he had at Ole Miss, that he had at East Mississippi Community College, that he had at South Alabama with, 2 and 3 stars and, walk-ons and blue chippers and guys that you really didn't expect to ball. You didn't really know could ball. You didn't really have an idea that they would jump off the page, jump off the surface, and have that success. Now you put this young man on a team where it is flooded with 4 and 5 stars. It is flooded with guys like LeBron Ray, flooded with Christian Barmore, flooded with DJ Dale, flooded with Ishmael Sopsher and Byron Young and Justin Boygby and Braylon Ingram and Stephon Wynn and the freshman Jamarian Latham, Jamil Burrows, Tim Smith. This defensive line is just flooded with guys that are saying, coach me, coach, I'm ready to get to the next level. Coach me, coach, I'm ready to be dominant on the field. Coach me, coach, I am prepared to make an impact. So, Coach Roach here in a situation where, to me, I feel like he's got the opportunity. He is in a spot to where he can be just as big, just as major, just as successful, if not a bit bigger than what Bo Davis was. Just seeing how he relates to these guys. He's played here before. He's from this state. He's from this area. He's from this program. He knows what is going to be expected of him. And even though we have so many comparisons that go around the college football landscape, most importantly the Alabama football landscape, I think that Roach will do the Alabama fans proud. He will do the program proud. He will do the coaching staff proud. Definitely will do Nick Saban proud, as he looks to take this defensive front and get it back to being aggressive, getting back to being headhunters, getting it back to being physical, nasty, mean, dangerous, all of the sort of adjectives I can throw out here when you talk what Crimson Tide football on defense is known for. But, folks, as always, if you want the best in Alabama football news, notes, analysis, and coverage. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. You can get this by going to the Touchdown Alabama magazine app, and you can download the app from the iPhone App Store if you're rocking Team Apple, Google Play Store if you happen to have the Android phone. For the audio listening options, we got you covered on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast.fm, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, or iHeartRadio. If the good and gracious Lord sees fit, I will return on Friday, continuing the conversation that is Alabama football. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, husbands love your wives. Wives appreciate, value those husbands. Children continue to find those ways to legitimately not be bored. Get those 3 hearty meals a day, those 3 great laughs a day. Protect yourself, protect the loved ones around you. Until next time, folks, I'm your man, Stephen M. Smith, and this has been In My Own Words.